Hello and welcome to our podcast series, A Spotlight on Construction. My name is Faye Mines and I will be your podcast host. And in this episode, which is themed around social value, we will be joined by two great guest speakers from the CCS construction team. They are Clare Chamberlain, Category Lead for Construction, and Noel Shearer, Head of Construction. Clare and Noel will be unpacking social value in construction, why it's important, and how we can support your requirements to ensure we can help you build a stronger, fairer future. So let's jump right in with our first question. So suddenly it seems like social value is just the top of the conversation everywhere. But what exactly is it and why is everyone talking about it? So Claire, do you want to kick off on this one?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So I think the idea of social value has been around for some time. The Social Value Act came into force in 2013, and that requires buyers to think about how they can secure social, economic and environmental impact in their procurements. And it did have a big impact on buying behaviour. But because it only applied to services and actually only required buyers to think about it, there was a limit to its impact. There were no minimum requirements with it either, and there was limited guidance to how it could be embedded. I think probably the most recent big change has been the procurement policy note that was issued by the Cabinet Office in June last year. And that was called PPN 620, taking account of social value in the award of central government contracts. That PPN requires central government departments to then explicitly evaluate social value when awarding major contracts. And then along with the PPN came the social value model, which sets out some really practical guidance on how buyers can think about embedding social value in their procurements. And it includes things like model evaluation questions, model responses, model award criteria, and sub-criteria, as well as reporting metrics, which I think is really useful. It sets out 5 themes and then 8 policy outcomes to guide central government departments. But I think it would be a really useful guide for wider public sector buyers as well. I know that I would have used it in my previous role working for a local authority. So the PPN also applies to all types of procurement, not just services. And then more recently, the construction playbook has further mandated the use of the model within construction projects, which is really good because social value is really important to construction.
Great, thanks for explaining that, Claire. And Noel, can you tell us why it's just so important in the construction industry?
Yeah, hi Faye. So the construction industry has been including social value in the way they work for some time. Normally under the guise of sustainability or corporate social responsibility. Construction is an area with really high spend, and the work that happens can have a really obvious impact, both locally and sometimes nationally. Then, as Claire referred to, then the introduction of the construction playbook just under 12 months ago, and then the publication of the PPN, there's been much more of a joined up message and a drive from government about how social value can maximise the benefits of public procurement. And that's by encouraging employment opportunities, developing skills and improving environmental sustainability. And then on top of that, the industry has been trying to move away from the idea of lowest price for some time and bringing in more of a focus on value adding activity. So it just makes sense for social value contributions to be a big consideration in construction when choosing a contractor. It's very easy, relevant and proportionate, but can still have a huge impact, whether that's local employment or skills training, encouraging equal opportunity or waste reduction or improving the local environment.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Noel. So on to our second question. So Claire, you see a lot of projects being tendered by public sector clients through the Construction Works and Associated Services framework. So do any particularly stick out as being really good examples of dealing with social value? And can you explain why that is, please?
Yeah, so just generally, I think the ones that stick out are the ones that take it really seriously from the beginning, rather than just plonking a social value question into the tender and hoping that that will do the job. The good ones have got a really clear strategy from the start, and they engage with key stakeholders, which might include local community groups, to find out what's really important to them in the area that they're working in. And then this also makes sure that it stays really relevant and proportionate to the project. They speak to the suppliers to find out what's realistic and get some ideas. And when it comes to tendering, they ask questions in a way that are going to help them get really tangible outcomes that can easily be linked to key performance indicators to monitor. In terms of a specific example, I think a really good example is the DWP Rapid Estate Expansion Programme that's got some really good social value embedded. The project itself was about quickly getting additional job centres on the high streets, responding to the expected increase in claims for unemployment benefits caused by COVID. And using the PPN 620 themes, They asked some really specific social value questions and identified reporting metrics. And they focused on suppliers recruiting the unemployed, as well as using apprenticeships and then resilience in the supply chain, so that everything that they asked for was really relevant to the type of work being undertaken. And then they also included metrics for the suppliers to report on, including things like the number of new startups, SMEs, VCSEs and mutuals. And I think that they were really clever in the way that they phrased their questions, so that as well as some really concrete outcomes in line with the specific metrics, they didn't stifle innovation. And so the suppliers could give some really good other suggestions of things that could be put in practice through the life of the project as well. Noel, can you think of any other examples?
I think there's one particular one that really resonated with me, which was the Ministry of Justice's approach to social value on their 4 New Prisons Alliance. One of the areas they've focused on is the employment of ex-offenders, which is clearly a key priority for them. But importantly, they've also ensured that the contract and the commercial arrangements that they've used as a whole has reinforced the right social value behaviours from their suppliers.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Some really good examples there for our listeners. So with increased focus on evaluating suppliers' social value proposals during the tender phase, how can customers make sure then that SMEs and smaller contractors aren't disadvantaged by a heavily weighted social value question?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question, Faye. I think social value at its best should complement your project, and it should be able to be achieved by any size contractor. It's really important to remember as well to keep it proportionate. So when you first start researching social value, remember to look at similar sized projects and the outcomes that they've delivered. Don't look at HS2 or the Olympic Games if it's a relatively small project and try and replicate what they've done, although they are really good examples of social value delivery. Think about specific broad themes that you can use rather than trying to capture everything. So don't spread yourself too thin. So for example, you might want to focus on job opportunities or levelling up, or you might want to focus on the environment. And the PPN social value model quick reference table is really handy for that. And then try and make sure that your social value themes complement your project. So, for example, if it's a short-term school extension, it's really not going to be appropriate to ask for 10 apprentice placements. Instead, you might want to think about an education session for school pupils or a local community environment project.
Thanks, Claire. Some really great tips and some really good pointers for our listeners to consider. So just off the back of this, we've seen in the past that suppliers have promised the world in social value questions, but they've not actually delivered on the outcomes. So now that social value is such a high weighting in the evaluation stage, how can customers ensure that social value promise in suppliers' bids gets measured and gets monitored?
Yeah, so I think evaluating suppliers for social value experience at expression of interest stage can be a really good way of getting examples of other projects that they've delivered that have shown some really tangible outcomes. Although it's also worth being mindful that this could disadvantage SMEs, so it might only be proportionate for larger projects. Make sure that you ask really specific questions that will get you tangible outcomes. So rather than a really generic question that asks a contractor how they will deliver social value on the project, it's probably worth setting out some really key outcomes that you want to be achieved and then asking suppliers how they will achieve them. And also ask them to include details around how they'll propose that you can jointly monitor and measure them. And then I think the other thing is to get the whole team on board and make everyone accountable. So if you've got a project manager that's been appointed, it might be worth making sure that they are also measured on ensuring social value outcomes are delivered throughout the project. Noel, can you think of any examples of where you've seen this happen?
Yeah, I think, Claire, picking up on what you said about bringing the whole team along with you and getting the whole team on board, I think a good and a quite common example I've seen is a situation where the client and contractor have jointly agreed to make a donation of either money or resource to a specific charity, and that charity chosen by the workforce so that they bought into it, and then linking that to a very visible and important KPI. So putting some flesh onto that, something like for every 10,000 hours that has been worked without a lost time accident occurring, the contractor and the client have both agreed to donate a specific amount of money to the chosen charity. And that's really helped to get all the workforce behind it and drive towards success on it.
So yeah, thank you. I think what we can gather from that is getting a team together to really be on board with social value is really important. So Thank you again for those great examples. So thank you, Clare and Noel, for helping us to understand as well the importance of social value in the construction industry, and also how you're both playing your part as CCS employees to support this. And hopefully for anyone listening to this podcast, you will have also helped them to understand how they can implement social value into their construction procurement, and also a number of things they can look out for when choosing a supplier. So finally, Clare and Noel, have you got any final words before we finish?
I think just remember the key thing is to keep it proportionate and also to keep it relevant to your project. Make sure that you use other people's learning of what went well and what they could have improved. So speak to other contracting authorities and then speak to your suppliers, do market research and engagement. We're really happy to talk to you if you've got any specific questions about social value in your construction project. And we're also really happy to link you up with some of our other customers who are procuring similar projects if you think that would be useful. If you want to find out some more information on the policy note, you might want to Google PPN 620, taking account of social value in the award of central government contracts, where you can find the PPN itself and then all of the guidance documents that we spoke about.
Great, thanks, Clare. And what about you, Noel? Anything to add?
I think a key takeaway for me is don't be afraid to take a step backwards and make sure you keep the big picture in mind. So have a really very clear view of the value outcomes you're trying to achieve, and make sure that the whole procurement and contract management process supports that and drives the outcomes and behaviours that you're trying to achieve.
Brilliant. Thank you both very much for today. And that wraps up our Spotlight on Construction podcast on social value. If you would like to discover how we could help you develop new and innovative solutions for your construction projects, please visit our website www.crowncommercial.gov.uk/construction. Together, we can help you build a stronger future and bring power to your procurement.